It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman, and this is the Forum on Eagle Community Television. It's good to have you watching along. We have a great program today. We're going to be talking about somebody who not only started in auctioneering, but then has won some awards. Our program is brought to you by HaysMed. Our guest is Brandon Hamel. And Brandon, good to have you with us on our program today.
Thanks to be here. Glad to be here.
You know what? When I was looking at this and who we had lined up, it's like, this is going to be fun because people get involved in our area in all sorts of different activities. You chose auctioneering and now are going to be heading to the national championship for auctioneering. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. But tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in a small community at DeMar. Farming community, just a little town, you know, just north of here, 45 miles.
Now, did you decide after being on the farm and being at farm auctions that you wanted to get into the auctioneering side of things?
You know, I was never really interested in it until just early on in college, right after high school. I started working for Lacrosse Sale Barn for Frank there just as a yard man and help, and just got addicted to it.
You see that happen. Grows on you. It is kind of a lifestyle because you end up in not only in front. You were talking about this program looking a little bit like Anchorman, but in some extent you do the same thing because you're up in front of a group of people. They're all watching you. You make a mistake and sell it to the wrong person, that's a bad day. So you have to be really on your game when you're doing the auctioneering side of things. Where did you learn? Did you take a course? Did you go to school?
I actually took a couple courses. The first one being in Plainville, a local auctioneer, Chick Selby. He's passed away now, but then I later went to Mason City, Iowa to Worldwide College of Auctioneering. That's where I went.
And is that a short 6-month, 1 year, 27-year school?
I think it was about 5 days is kind of the length of it. You know, and it's pretty compressed in 5 days, but they basically give you the basics to get started and kind of go from there.
Now, one of the things I know has to happen is it's one thing to be an auction, it's another thing to be an auctioneer. It's another thing to get a real gig where you get to do it because you only get paid when you're up there auctioneering, not when you're doing auctioneering in the shower, right?
That's right. That's the hardest thing is to get, you have to have somebody to believe in you. You're handling, you know, a producer's livelihood when you're selling cattle, and you have to talk a sale barn owner or somebody in, you know, to believe in you to give you a shot, and that's where you learn at it really.
One of the things, and there's some real tricks to the trade of getting people excited to buy, and is that something they also taught you in school, or is that something just naturally you have to have that kind of?
You can't teach that, and there's a lot of auctioneers that have it, but there's a lot of them that don't, and it's just like Peyton Manning on the Super Bowl, you know. It's a tough trade to be able to have that.
So other than the speaking side of it, are there some other things as well, like how you look at people, how you communicate, I guess without the audio part, but how you communicate in other ways? You
know, there is. As you're selling an item, which it doesn't matter what you're selling, you're communicating to buyers or potential buyers, and you have to convince them to buy the product, you know.
Well, when you look at this, I'm going to go down this, and there's a thing, and it's called the World Livestock Auctioneer Championships. And what started your process to apply for that? Because you have to do kind of a preliminary round, and I think you won in Russell, correct? And then they sent you to the regional, and then you'll be in the finals. Is that how that works?
Well, actually, the Russell was a state competition. I actually got second there.
Okay.
But the LMA puts on the World Livestock Auction Contest, and they have 3 qualifying events, and this was one of them.
So you went to Iowa. Mm-hmm. What happens when you show up in Iowa? Did a bunch of guys show up, or are there some ladies in this as well?
It's all men.
All men, and so you all get up there, and what happens in a livestock auctioning competition?
First off, you're very nervous. I'll just tell you. I don't care it doesn't matter how professional you are or seasoned. You draw numbers. You draw your number of the place you're going to sell, and they sequester you till it's your turn. I drew second to last, so I was sequestered from roughly 10 a.m. to 4 o'clock.
So you had to wait for all the other, what, I think 28 different contestants, and you were next to the last, so you had to wait. I bet that was painful, wasn't it?
Tough, it's tough. Your nerves build all day.
Uh-huh. And so you were ready, when you came out of the chute, you were bucking ready to go. And then what happens? Do they pull up a cow picture and you auction the cow, or what do you actually auction off?
You set down just like a normal sale. They give you 8 drafts of cattle to sell, just as if it were, you know, during a regular sale, and you have to market them the best you can. You know, that's what our job is. Sell them as high as we can. And
a panel of judges then comes back at the end, and you finish 5th in that competition. Do the judges then give you pointers and some feedback on what you did?
You know, they really don't. I suppose if you'd sit down and ask them, they probably would. But in this case, we had to get back. I sell for Plainville, and he had a big sale the next day, so we had a 8-hour drive back. So we didn't stick around much for the evening. So
next step is the Nationals, and you were telling me you get to take your wife to Paris, except it's Paris, Kentucky.
She don't know that yet.
Hope she doesn't watch the program. You know, when you head off to Paris. So when you do this, is the National the same way, and how many contestants will be on the National side?
I believe there's 31 of us. They take 30, the top 10 at each 3 qualifiers, and then the Canadian champion gets an automatic bid. So I think there's 31 of us, and we'll do the same. We'll draw hats, you know, for your place, but there's actually an interview day. An interview is part of the process. There's an interview part of the competition. So.
And there's not a swimsuit competition, is there? It's just interview and auctioneering, those 2 things?
Yep. The LMA, they're looking for a public spokesman to represent the industry and them.
And that's the National Livestock Marketing Association?
Yes.
Yeah. And so then you, in turn, after winning this, whoever does win that, then becomes sort of a spokesperson for that group across the country.
You kind of travel the United States and represent them and sell at sales, you know, and just represent the industry.
You know, one of the things that's unique, because we have auctions a lot in our area, you don't see them as much maybe in the bigger cities, but you have them a lot, whether it be land auction, cattle auction, farm auctions, those sort of things. It becomes quite a big business, and I assume this type of award helped get you in the door on some of the bigger projects.
I would hope so. This is my first time qualifying, so we'll see, you know, what doors open up after this.
All right, well, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and find out how you practice, if you practice in the shower, driving down the road in your car, and then give me some pointers on how maybe I can get started, right? Brandon Hamel's our guest here on the Forum on Eagle Community Television. Back with more after this.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our Forum program here on Eagle Community Television. Our program is brought to you by Hayes Med, and if you have questions, ideas, thoughts on some future programs like this one, send them to me, gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also chase us down online if you're on a Facebook. Chase us down under ECTV Forum. You'll find us right there. Again, our guest is Brandon Hamel, and Brandon is just qualified to be at the National Livestock Association's annual, or their national contest for auctioneering. Going into the break, we talked about what you do and how you practice getting started. How do you practice in general? Do you practice driving down the highway? If I'm driving on the road and see somebody over there just talking away, is that an auctioneer?
That's a lot of what we do. As we're driving to the next sale or to get groceries or pick up the kids, selling each telephone pole or...
Does your wife ever get tired of this sort of thing?
Yes, very much so.
When you first get started, what are the tricks, like if you were teaching me, what are the first things you do? Because there's almost, I'll call it a melody to auctioneering if you do it right. What do they teach you as a first step for doing that? Do you teach somebody like me?
You know, there's a lot of techniques that are used. Every guy has his own style. Basically, we just got started by using a few filler words in between numbers, you know, and pretty soon you build this rhythmic chant, and it just kind of all falls into place.
What are your rhythmic words that you use?
Dollar, like $1, $1 now, $2 now, $2. That's a lot of it. You know, you as you become more seasoned, there's more words that you use, but dollar is probably the most common word.
So could somebody like me eventually become an auctioneer if I practiced a lot?
I'm a firm believer in you can do anything you set your mind to, so you're going to have to work hard, believe me.
Brandon, I like you here already. So when you do an auction, a part of it is getting the gigs to do the auction. When you leave, you know, Super Bowl happened a couple weeks ago, and when we do the Super Bowl, you see guys that do a really good job. How do you know when you do a really good job?
There's a sense of completion that comes upon you, and you just, once you become to that level, I think it just comes natural.
Does the crowd kind of react to you too at some point?
Yeah, the crowd knows when, you know, you're the top group or not.
You're having fun doing these sort of things.
They can tell, yeah.
You know, a lot of times some of the farm auctions that are around the area, you know, you have a lot of stuff that's fun to auction off because it's unique, it's something unusual. But there's a lot of boxes of stuff. How do you keep an enthusiasm and get the enthusiasm going for hours when you're dealing with another box of bolts?
It's just like showing up Monday morning to this. I'm sure there's days you don't want to push on, but you do. You just find a way.
You're going to get that done.
You just gotta get
What's the hardest thing you found to sell?
The hardest thing. Boxes of
Bolts.
old bolts, newspapers. I've sold a house sale one time. It would have been a better garage sale, but we sold it.
You got rid of it. And that is one thing about the auction business, is that you do get rid of everything.
Sure.
And in many cases, it's a fair price because that's what people are willing to pay. And a lot of times the owner of that stuff feels it's worth more. But when you go to an auction, that's kind of what's there. Do they also in your school talk about some of the marketing side of this, or do you?
Yeah, there's a segment that teaches you how to market, you know, and advertisement's big. It's just like any business, but you know, it's your responsibility to get the correct buyers there to buy the items.
Well, Brandon, wish you the best of luck in the national championship for auctioneering. You have the right kind of attitude to do well, and so hope you bring home a big championship. And maybe talk to you when we're done with that.
Sure will.
Brandon Hamel has been our guest here on the Forum on Eagle Community Television. Not only is a regional award winner, but going to the national auctioneering competition that's going to be in Paris, Kentucky. Thanks for watching the Forum. The Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.